Hello guys, welcome to Friday. Taking the day off yesterday was so nice. It was honestly just kind of like an enforced break. It wasn't like I was feeling burnt out or tired, but I wanted to take a break before I hit that point. We're learning. So as I said, as you might be able to hear, I am sick. It is a cold, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I really just have a stuffed nose and I'm very irritated by that because it just puts a hamper on everything that I have to do and it means I have to cancel a bunch of my plans. But today my big thing is I'm doing a painting. I have a painting commission. It's the last one of the year actually, which is super cool and exciting. I already have my digital sketch prepared and I'm going to take you through like from start to finish. That's basically going to be what the video is today. We can still have fun vlogmasing from home, right? Right, Nori? We can have fun vlogmasing at home. He likes to sit there in front of the fridge because there's like a warm fan. Adorable, right? Also, did you notice my cute new intro? Oh my god, so that was another thing I did yesterday. I don't know what possessed me. I don't even remember what triggered me to be like, I should make an intro. But I think it turned out cute as hell and we all know who the real main character is of this TV show. I've laid out here everything that I need to start my painting. So let me talk you through what I have. I have my acrylic gouache. This is my primary medium. For this painting, I have watercolor. I am going to be, this is the color sketch that I created for the painting, and as you can see there's a lot of gradients going on, and that's not something I'm really comfortable with creating with the gouache, so I'm going to do at least part of the background in watercolor paint. This is the paper I am going to use, Canson XL. Here is the printed edition of the line art from the colored sketch. This is what I'm going to use. I'm going to trace it basically 100% onto the working paper there using my window. I have my water cup, sans water. I have pencils for transferring the sketch as well as the eraser. These are the ones from, I think they're from Daiso, and they have such a nice texture. There's a whole bunch of different shapes that all have like different characters on them. Adorbs. I have some washi tape that I'll use to mask out the border around the drawing so that I don't get any bleed, and I think that this design is by my friend Soup Base Chan. I have two ceramic palettes. Usually I just only use one, but since I'm doing watercolor too, I just thought I'd keep the two separate so they don't get mixed. And then I have my selection of brushes here. Okay, so here is the transferred sketch. It's pretty close to the one that's beneath it. It's still taped on the back. There you go. As you can see, I've like eschewed almost all detail. This is kind of like a paint by the numbers thing where the most important delineations are between areas of different color. The details I can just put in afterwards as I go because I'm going to use my colored sketch here as my roadmap. So this is up in front of me. The painting will be down here. I'll be referencing this using the sketch that I've created, and hopefully we'll end up with a beautiful painting. Good morning guys, it's Tomorrow Tuna here, ready to take you through the process of the painting that I did yesterday. Yay! All in all, this painting took me about 7 hours to do, so you're gonna get the 8-minute supercut of those 7 hours. The first step that I am doing here is filling in the background sketch because I didn't have actual line work to work from to transfer the sketch, and I figured I could just eyeball it anyway because I was planning to make changes from the one that was actually in the colored sketch I did. The first thing I'm doing is laying down the watercolor. I don't know what would happen if I tried to put watercolor like on top of dried gouache. The thing with acrylic gouache is that it is, I always forget the word. It doesn't reactivate with water, so even if I did try and do watercolor around it or on top of it, it wouldn't smudge the acrylic gouache at all. But having the watercolor in the background there does mean I had to be a little bit careful anywhere that it did overlap with somewhere that acrylic gouache was going to be, because I had running the risk of reactivating the watercolor in the background. I think it turned out very dramatic. I was a little nervous at first, but I'm like, trust the process, keep going. I started with the background acrylic gouache elements. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the characters of the background first, but I figured that once the background values and colors were set in stone, it would be able to inform some of the decisions that I would make with the characters themselves, kind of getting the values right and setting the mood and color palette. I think that pink tree in the background on the left side there really did a lot to inform the pinks and the purples that I was going to choose throughout the rest of the drawing. And there's not really a ton of rhyme or reason why I choose to do one color or one area over another as I go. The main things that I'm focusing on is anywhere that there's wet paint, I don't want my hand to run the risk of running through it and smudging or picking up little bits. And when I have wet paint on my palette, I want to use that because acrylic gouache, again, won't be usable once it's dry, so I want to use up everything that I've squeezed onto the palette. So I'll kind of go through and, like, if I have a couple spots with red, I'll focus on all of that. If I have a couple spots with green, I'll focus on all that until, yeah, I just kind of make choices as I go. Now, with the background finished, I am onto the characters. For this piece, the characters are kind of going to look like a cell painting on top of a matte painting background. That was kind of the vibe that I was going for because I didn't want the lighting to be too dramatic on them so that you kind of like lose the detail in the characters and their like color correctness. And like I said, this part is a lot more paint by the numbers, where the background, I was able to make a lot of sort of creative decisions and like add texture and all that. When I'm doing these characters, I'm following the color map. I am mixing my colors carefully and laying them in as I go. And again, no rhyme or reason. Usually I do the skin tone first, not for any particular advantage, but that's just the habit that I'm in. But I left it to last this time, I guess, just to see if it would feel any different. It didn't. But one of the things that I absolutely do first is put in all of my flats. I did want to play a little bit with the highlights and the lowlights while I had colors mixed and fresh, especially with that purple, because I had to do a lot of mixing to get that purple, and so I wanted to make sure everything was in the same color family and I wouldn't have to remix the purple to do the shadows and the highlights, so I did go ahead and do that right off the bat. But it's important for me to get all of my flats in because it gives me a good sense of how my values are looking like across the entire painting. If I was to be doing like flats of the hair and then doing the inking on the hair, and then I come back and I add the flats in the other area and I realize that the hair needs to be lighter or darker, I've already done the inks and then I have to like paint over that or otherwise kind of waste time correcting mistakes that I've made along the way. And the last thing that I want to do when I'm doing these paintings is waste any time. It's always a funny process working with gouache because you're really building up layers and again trusting that like you are following the correct steps and order of things to get to the finished product that you want, because I don't really know how it's all going to come together until the end when I start putting the line work in. Here we go, line work. We got tiny brush at the ready. This brush is so popular. Everybody's like, what brush is that? It's so small. Where'd you get it? How are you getting your lines so tight? This little sucker is just from Amazon. I get these packs of quote miniature brush sets where they come with all these ultra fine brushes that are intended for painting miniature toys, you know, like for Warhammer or for D&D. And so you can find these. They're super inexpensive. I actually need to replace my set because I've used them too much. They're starting to get a little frayed and bent. And when I do replace them, I'm going to like post a link so that everybody has the exact set that I have, because I keep recommending them and then kind of not really being sure which set it was that I bought. I gotta go check, basically. I think one of the really amazing parts of having done quite a bit of gouache painting over the last couple of years is seeing my own personal progress and feeling it, you know, because back when I first started working with gouache, it was challenging to get these tight lines, and like I would make mistakes in my paint watered downness or not like understanding the transfer of the sketch to the painting. So like the digital sketch and the painting are going to have intrinsically different properties, and I have to like embrace that in the final piece. I know it's a bit vague, but it's like hard to describe without you having done the process yourself. But while I was inking this, I was like feeling the confidence that comes with that practice. And yeah, I was zooming along. I think it was about an hour and a half for all of the inking details that I had to do. And one of the nice parts about using paint is I'm not beholden to like having all black line work. So a lot of the first pass of the line work that I'm doing is in dark browns and dark purples, just kind of starting to carve out, especially on the face here, because I had like a really odd sketch thing going on that was not correct. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do a lighter line and then I'll come back in with black once I'm sure that I put the lines in the right place. But doing those lighter lines lets me continue to build these layers of depth so that I'm not overcommitting to the level of contrast too early on. And colored lines is actually something that I use in my digital art. It's a huge part of my style, is not having all the lines be black. I just think it's like, I work in such a simple color lay kind of like thing. I was gonna say style again. I'm like, don't repeat the same word. But I work with this color laying flat technique. So adding those colored lines really helps build depth and detail without adding too much like painterliness or rendering. I really try and approach my work in kind of a less is more philosophy, which this painting might not feel that way because it's very painterly in the background with all of the details. And this was a challenge. Like, I'd never done anything like this before. I've done a couple of full background paintings in the past, but nothing quite like this. So we were in new territory. Every painting that I do, I try something new and I learn from it. I just love painting. I wish I could do it more, but it's just not a huge part of my business, I guess. But anyway, back to the painting. I peeled off the outer rim because I was just kind of getting sick of looking at the tape, and I wanted that clean white background just while I was finishing the final details so that I could kind of get a sense of exactly how the painting was coming along without those distracting edges. Doing the face, I wanted to make sure to film that because that's always very impressive, but I'm really happy with how the faces came out. Sometimes when I do the sketch to the painting, like I lose some of that intent because I spend so long on the sketch making sure that the faces look perfect, and then they always look different when I paint them. But luckily, I guess there was enough like correct structure for me to like make it different and better, but still have that like level of accuracy. And I stopped filming, but I did do some highlights after finishing up these inks here. And yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching me put this painting together, and we'll see you in the next Vlogmas.